The crystal wineglass slipped from my trembling fingers and shattered across the sunlit dining room floor just as I watched my husband glance over his shoulder, pull a tiny bottle from his jacket pocket, and quietly pour a few drops into my glass of red wine. Before I could even process what I had seen, a guest accidentally switched our places at the table, and seconds later my husband smiled, reached for the wrong glass, and drank every last drop himself. In that horrifying instant, I realized whatever he had meant for me was now inside him, and I had only moments to decide whether to let fear speak louder than love. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances, please take a moment to like this video, leave a thoughtful comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Marissa had always believed that trust was not built through grand promises but through thousands of ordinary moments. For 17 years she had shared breakfasts, road trips, hospital visits, anniversaries, disappointments, and dreams with her husband, Grant. Friends often described them as the couple everyone admired. They laughed easily, supported one another, and never seemed afraid to face life's challenges together. Yet appearances often hide silent storms, and over the past several months Marissa had begun noticing small changes that slowly chipped away at her confidence. Grant had become distracted. He answered phone calls in another room, stared at bills longer than necessary, and smiled less often. Whenever she asked if something was wrong, he insisted work was simply becoming more stressful. She wanted to believe him because trusting him had always been easier than imagining anything else. Their friends had organized a cheerful afternoon garden celebration for their wedding anniversary. Bright sunshine poured over white tables decorated with fresh flowers. Children chased each other across the grass while older relatives shared stories beneath colorful umbrellas. It should have been one of the happiest afternoons of Marissa's life, yet an uneasy feeling settled deep inside her heart from the moment Grant arrived looking unusually nervous. His smile seemed practiced instead of genuine, and his eyes kept wandering toward the dining table. As everyone prepared for lunch, Marissa stepped inside the nearby dining room to retrieve a forgotten camera. She froze when she caught sight of Grant standing alone beside the table. Thinking no one was watching, he removed a tiny glass bottle from his pocket, uncapped it, and carefully emptied several drops into the wine poured for her place setting. His hands shook slightly before he quickly hid the bottle again. Her world stopped. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears so loudly that she could barely breathe. Every happy memory they had shared seemed to crack apart in a single heartbeat. Questions flooded her mind faster than answers. Had he stopped loving her? Had their marriage been a lie? Was he trying to make her sick? Was he trying to end her life? Before she could confront him, one of Grant's elderly uncles cheerfully rearranged the seating so everyone could fit around the long table. Plates shifted. Glasses moved. People laughed without realizing anything had changed. Grant returned, thanked his uncle with a distracted smile, lifted the wineglass now sitting in front of him, and raised it for a toast celebrating 17 years of marriage. Marissa recognized the glass immediately. It was hers. She screamed his name just as he swallowed the final sip. Every conversation stopped. Grant blinked in confusion before suddenly pressing one hand against the table. His face turned pale. Sweat formed across his forehead. Without hesitation, Marissa rushed forward, grabbed his arm, and shouted for someone to call an ambulance. Fear completely erased her anger. Whatever she had believed only moments before no longer mattered. All she could think about was saving the man she had loved for nearly half her life. Paramedics arrived within minutes. As Grant was placed into the ambulance, Marissa climbed inside beside him, holding his trembling hand while desperately searching his frightened face for answers. At the hospital, doctors quickly examined the liquid remaining inside the bottle that had been recovered from Grant's jacket. Every passing minute felt endless. Marissa imagined every terrible possibility while sitting alone beneath the bright afternoon sunlight shining through the emergency room windows. Finally, a physician approached. The liquid, he explained, was not poison. It was an experimental herbal sedative prescribed by Grant's physician to help with severe anxiety attacks. Mixed incorrectly with alcohol, however, it could dangerously lower blood pressure and cause temporary collapse. Fortunately, Grant had received treatment quickly enough to avoid permanent harm. Relief washed over Marissa, but confusion remained. If it wasn't poison, why had he secretly placed it into her wine? Hours later, when Grant had recovered enough to speak, tears filled his eyes before he even began explaining. Months earlier, Marissa's younger sister had been diagnosed with a rare heart condition requiring expensive treatment. Marissa had quietly sold treasured family jewelry and worked extra hours without complaining, believing Grant knew nothing about her sacrifices. In truth, Grant had discovered everything. Determined to help, he secretly accepted a second demanding job, borrowed money against his retirement savings, and exhausted himself trying to protect both his wife and her sister from financial disaster. The pressure slowly overwhelmed him. He developed crippling anxiety that left him unable to sleep. His doctor prescribed medication but warned that it caused extreme drowsiness. Grant feared telling Marissa because he believed she already carried enough burdens. Instead, he planned something foolish. He intended to add the prescribed drops to her wine before lunch, hoping the mild sedative would finally help her relax after months of constant stress. He convinced himself it would be a loving surprise because the dosage itself was safe when used properly. What he failed to realize was that the medication should never be mixed with alcohol. The tiny bottle carried a warning label he had misunderstood. His desperate attempt to ease her suffering nearly became a tragedy. Marissa listened quietly, unable to speak. She had spent hours believing the man she loved wanted to harm her. Grant had spent months believing he had to carry every burden alone. Both had allowed fear to replace honest conversation. When they finally looked into each other's eyes, neither saw a villain. They saw two exhausted people who had forgotten that marriage was never meant to be lived in silence. Recovery took several weeks. Grant followed his doctor's treatment correctly, attended counseling for anxiety, and learned healthier ways to manage stress. Marissa also admitted something she had hidden for years. She constantly tried to appear strong because she feared becoming a burden. Their marriage had not been damaged by hatred. It had been weakened by two loving people protecting each other with secrets. Instead of pretending everything was perfect, they began rebuilding their relationship one truthful conversation at a time. They attended counseling together during bright weekday afternoons. They took long walks through neighborhood parks, leaving their phones behind. They learned that asking for help was not weakness but courage. Friends noticed laughter returning to their home, not because life had become easier, but because they finally faced difficulties side by side instead of alone. Months later, they hosted another daytime family gathering in the very same garden where everything had nearly fallen apart. This time there were no hidden bottles, no silent worries, and no carefully rehearsed smiles. Before lunch began, Grant quietly stood, lifted a glass of sparkling water, and openly thanked his wife for saving his life despite believing he had betrayed her. Marissa smiled through grateful tears, knowing that love is proven most powerfully not during perfect days but during painful ones when forgiveness seems impossible. The applause that followed was filled with genuine joy. Children laughed beneath the warm afternoon sun, relatives embraced one another, and hope replaced fear in every corner of the garden. Marissa realized that the worst moment of her marriage had unexpectedly become the beginning of its strongest chapter. Trust had returned, not because mistakes had been erased, but because honesty had finally replaced silence. Before we end this story, we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever discovered that a painful misunderstanding became an opportunity for healing? Please leave a meaningful comment sharing the lesson this story reminded you of, because your words may encourage someone else who is struggling today. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Remember, the people we love cannot read our minds, and silence often creates fears that truth could have prevented. Sometimes the greatest act of love is simply having the courage to speak honestly before misunderstandings become heartbreak. And even when life brings frightening moments that seem impossible to overcome, kindness, forgiveness, and hope still have the power to turn our darkest afternoons into the beginning of a brighter tomorrow.